From unidentified serial killers to John and Jane Does, we've got a dark one today as we cover part 2 of the top 10 dark secrets not even the FBI can solve. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Miami Beach John Doe. In December of 2009, a man was found floating face down by a couple who was walking on the beach in Miami Beach. There weren't any obvious signs of trauma, so authorities really aren't exactly sure what happened to this man or if foul play was involved. One of the most striking things about this case to me is that he was 6'9". I feel like the average person is not that tall, and coupled with the fact that his face was fully recognizable, I feel like he should have been able to be easily identified. He was wearing swim trunks, so it's possible that he may have been swept out to sea, but he also had on shoes and a watch. His estimated time of death was just a few hours prior to his body being found. There's just something about this man being so recognizable and being found so quickly that just really makes me feel like something sinister was going on here. He's estimated to be 25 to 40 years of age. He was 6'9" and 335 pounds with short brown hair and brown eyes and a clean shaven face. Anyone with any information can contact Brittany McLaurin at District 11 Miami-Dade County Medical Examiner's Office or Kenny Matthews at the Miami Beach Police Department. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Jackson County John Doe. In 1981, a man was struck by a vehicle and has never been able to be identified. This would have just been a regular, albeit tragic, John Doe case, but it really took an even darker turn. In 2014, a newspaper published a morgue photo of this John Doe in an attempt to receive some new leads. Well, they got more than they bargained for when someone contacted authorities saying that the man looked like one on the FBI's most wanted list. This person thought the John Doe looked like William Bradford Bishop Jr., who was wanted for taking the lives of his own family in 1976. Because of this tip, the authorities had to exhume the body of the John Doe, who turned out to not be this killer at all. Unfortunately, the John Doe has still never been identified. He was described as approximately 55 years old, a white male with blue eyes, brown/gray hair, 5 feet 9 inches and 155 pounds. Anyone with information on this John Doe should call the Scottsboro Police Department. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Max Headroom Guy. Really taking a twist from what we've just talked about. On November 22nd, 1987, a man wearing a Max Headroom mask hijacked 2 separate television broadcasts in Chicago, Illinois. The man was basically speaking nonsense and just moaning and screaming throughout, and the audio was extremely distorted. He interrupted the sports segment on the 9 o'clock news for about 25 seconds, and then a few hours later he interrupted a broadcast of Doctor Who for about 90 seconds. The whole thing was very weird, and the second interruption featured some fairly inappropriate behavior, such as the moment when he partially exposed his butt, and an unidentified woman came into the shot and he started smacking his butt with a fly swatter. I'm unsure why someone would hijack a television broadcast for basically just nonsense, but I guess maybe he was just trying to have a good time. While the charges for this incident could have left the man with jail time and a $100,000 fine, no one has been able to figure out who this man or even the woman who helped him are. I wonder if we'll ever get answers because I have so many questions. In our number 7 spot today, we have Monique. In January of 2015, 3 bird watchers in a park in the Gravesend area of Brooklyn, Kings County, New York found a decomposed right hand laying in the sand. The hand was right on the shoreline of Coney Island Creek, and it seemed as though it had been in the water for quite some time. The next day, authorities searched the area and found a foot which had been smoothly cut around the ankle. For the next 3 months, they were unable to find any more parts until on March 22nd, 3 teenagers headed into a wooded area near the creek around 1,000 yards from where the other parts had been found. The teenagers saw the skeleton of a rib cage and spine and of course called the police. Authorities searched again and found a leg on the ground and an elbow hanging from a tree. Upon examination, they could confirm that all the parts belonged to the same person. There isn't much to go on, but it seemed as though they were put into the water, and when they washed ashore, they were dragged to their locations by different animals. This Jane Doe is described as a black female from 20 to 45. She was most likely around 5'3" to 5'9", and although a head was not found, through DNA mapping, it is most likely she had black hair and brown eyes. There has been a facial approximation of what she may have looked like. She had a tattoo on her right calf that was red and green. It was a heart and a rose with the name Monique. Investigators are unsure if that was her name or the name of someone close to her. Other details are that she had a broken rib at some point in her life, and that she had a mesh artery stent within the tissue of her pelvis and an intrauterine device, which means that she has definitely had surgery before. Anyone with any information on this case are asked to contact the New York City Police Department or the New York City Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, or if you wish to remain anonymous, you can do so by calling New York Crime Stoppers. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Jefferson County Jane Doe. In January of 1993, the head of a woman was found in Wayne Fitzgerald State Park. Unfortunately, the rest of her body has never been found, which is both deeply disturbing as well as frustrating, since it has left authorities very little to go on. One thing that they were able to figure out from the head was that whoever this woman was, she suffered from a condition called torticollis or wry neck, which would have caused her head to be slightly tilted towards the left. This is a really rare condition, so people who knew her really should have had an easy time recognizing her, or at least coming forward if they knew anyone with the condition who had gone missing. People think the head may have been thrown out of a car window as it drove past, which is just incredibly upsetting. She would have been somewhere from 30 to 50 years old with shoulder-length reddish brown hair. Anyone with information about this case should direct it to Illinois State Police Zone 7 investigations. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Doodler. While this nickname sounds very sweet, it, like most everything else on this list, is very sinister. The nickname that this unidentified killer received is due to his practice of sketching his victims before taking their lives. This unidentified killer committed their crimes in the San Francisco area from January of 1974 to September of 1975, and they specifically targeted the gay community. It is believed that 14 deaths can be attributed to this killer, while 3 others were injured in the process. Unfortunately, because of the stigma and sensitivity surrounding gay men at the time, the 3 who survived this monster were very reluctant when speaking with authorities for fear of being outed as a result of it. This has led to there being very little information for them to work with in terms of identifying the man responsible. For a while there was a primary suspect, but that person has never been officially charged because, sadly, none of the survivors felt comfortable enough to testify in court. There's a very real chance that authorities know who the killer is, but just don't have the evidence to prove it in a court of law. That truly is a terrifying thought. In our number 4 spot today, we have Jack the Ripper. One of the most famous serial killers who was never caught, and to this day, no one knows who he is. The Jack the Ripper killings popped up in England in the year 1888. There were 3 separate women that were killed, and at first it would seem like they had no connection, but after some investigating, it started to look as if a serial killer was on the loose because each of the women was killed in the same gruesome way. One of the most eerie parts of these crimes was the precision. It would seem that his killings were performed by someone with a deep medical knowledge, possibly a doctor or a surgeon. Everything about the killings heightened when Scotland Yard received the letter from hell. It was apparently written by Jack the Ripper, and it spoke of a detailed breakdown of how he was committing his crimes and how much he enjoyed it. Is anyone else freaked out right now? Some people thought that this could have been a hoax that the newspaper threw together so that they could sell more papers. You send one creepy letter and the next thing you know you're making millions, baby. But the authenticity of this letter was elevated when a human kidney was also sent to Scotland Yard. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Zodiac Killer. This one had to make it on this list because although these stories are terrifying and horrible, the story of the uncaught and unidentified serial killer known as the Zodiac is truly one of the most mysterious stories. The Zodiac Killer took the lives of 5 people in the San Francisco Bay Area between December 1968 and October of 1969. He was most known for targeting young couples or a lone male cab driver. Despite 2 people luckily and thankfully escaping his attempted evil doings, he has still never been caught. He was one of those weird ones who left notes and stuff for the police to find. There are of course many people who think the Zodiac has been identified, I'm sure we'll see some of them in the comments, but while no one has heard from the Zodiac since 1974, the case remains active in many different counties and it is yet to be officially solved. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Sleepy Hollow Killer. Starting in 1997, there was a series of killings in an area of South Africa, and they are all believed to be linked to an unidentified suspect who is being called the Sleepy Hollow Killer. During this time, it was believed that 13 crimes could be attributed to this person, and despite investigations, whoever the perpetrator was, authorities were unable to identify them. There was a small hiatus from the crimes, which is sometimes referred to as a cooling off period, but in 2007 they unfortunately began again. While the more recent crimes varied slightly from the originals, authorities believe it is the same person, active yet again. There has only been one public suspect in this case, but unfortunately it is no longer believed that he had anything to do with these crimes, and that the one he committed was entirely separate. It really is horrifying to think of people who do things like this being able to get away with it for so many years, so let's just hope that he is caught very soon. The good news is that a special task team has been formed in order to really look into these crimes and explore and examine all of the circumstances, modus operandi, and all of the material evidence. In our number 1 spot today we have the alphabet. There are a lot of scary people on this list today, and this one is certainly no exception. The alphabet killings are a series of unsolved crimes named because of how each victim had their first initial that matched their last. So their first name and their last name started with the same letter. They know the crimes are linked, or at least have reason to suspect they are, because of a similar MO that includes how the life was taken and where the remains were placed afterwards. They were all taken in a similar area around a similar time. There are theories and suspects as to who could have committed these horrific crimes, but as of right now, no one knows for sure. These crimes were committed between 1971 and 1973 in Rochester, New York, and because of the timing, it's possible that whoever committed these crimes could still be alive, but perhaps they might not be. Authorities, despite having an immensely difficult job placed in front of them, are still committed and trying to solve this case. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you next time. Bye!